The Veyron's pride hummed softly as it rotated through the void, its corridors glowing with the pale, bluish light of stabilizing fields. Lyria perched on the observation deck railing, long ears flicking like twin radar dishes at every creak of the ship, while Caliph leaned against the opposite console, her hair catching the starlight in an almost obnoxious sparkle. They had arrived to oversee the human crew, whose reputation for incompetence had apparently preceded them, and already the laughter had started, subtle at first, then louder, bouncing off the metallic walls like ricocheting plasma bolts. Jerk appeared in the main corridor, boots squeaking slightly against the anti-grav panels. He was built solidly, shoulders broad enough to make some of the alien crew raise an eyebrow, though he moved like a toddler in a too-big spacesuit. Lyria squinted at him, the corner of her lips twitching. "Is that supposed to be our champion?" she whispered, her ears twitching in amusement. Caliph snorted, covering her mouth so her laugh wouldn't alert the bridge officers. "Champion. He looks like he wrestled a zero-G laundry stack and lost." Jerk, unaware of the scrutiny, fumbled with the door controls, cursing under his breath when the magnetic seal stubbornly resisted. The aliens exchanged a glance, the kind that said, "We are witnessing something tragic and hilarious at once." He finally shoved the panel, triggering a hiss as the door slid open, and immediately one of his sleeves caught on the edge, sending him tumbling forward. Lyria's laughter burst free, a musical note that ricocheted off the walls, while Caliph's eyes danced with mirth, ears twitching with every thud of his awkward landing. "Smooth human. Very heroic," Lyria called, her voice dripping with mock admiration. Caliph elbowed her, grinning. "I think he's auditioning for slapstick champion of the quadrant." Jerk scrambled up, dusting off his uniform. "Yeah, well, not everyone has the grace of a long-eared aristocrat," he said, tilting his head toward them. The aliens froze, ears twitching sharply, before bursting into laughter again, unable to resist the sharp jab. Even the human crew on the deck snickered, relief threading through the tension of their usual mistakes. The day wore on, with Jerk assigned to assist in the hydroponics bay, a place Lyria and Caliph had dubbed the arena of human incompetence. Floating pods of vegetables bobbed gently in zero-G, while the humans, under strict supervision, tried to manage the nutrient flow. Jerk, in particular, seemed destined to fail. He knocked over a vat of glowing, floating strawberries, sending them spinning in every direction. One lodged itself neatly in Caliph's hair, sticking with a suspicious adherence that made her ears twitch angrily. "Human. I swear if you eat that one, I'll consider it an act of war," she said, swatting at the fruit with a precision that almost betrayed her amusement. Jerk grinned, picking up the pod with mock solemnity. "It's okay. I read somewhere that alien hair is nutritious." Caliph blinked, momentarily speechless, before laughter overtook her. Lyria leaned back against the observation console, shaking her head. "We might have to keep him around just for entertainment." Hours later, chaos struck. One of the hydroponics pods malfunctioned, releasing a cloud of mist that threatened to short-circuit the bay's sensors. Humans panicked, flailing, slipping in zero-G, knocking floating tools into the air with frantic gestures. Lyria and Caliph, poised for the perfect moment to watch human disaster unfold, were ready with biting commentary. "Oh, this is going to be glorious," Lyria whispered. Then Jerk sprang into action. He activated his combat suit's emergency override, fingers flying over alien interfaces that were never meant for human hands. The system beeped, whirred, and clicked, responding to his improvised commands. Within moments, the mist was contained, pods stabilized, and the floating vegetables gently returned to their beds. Lyria blinked, her ears twitching in disbelief. Caliph's jaw dropped just slightly before she muttered, "Well, that was unexpectedly competent." Jerk leaned against a railing, breathing hard, and quipped, "All in a day's work for a slapstick champion." Both alien women stared at him, trying to maintain the veneer of disdain while secretly noting the faint spark of admiration creeping into their hearts. Humor became their shield. Lyria whispered about drafting a manual called Human Surprises. How they occasionally don't fail, but under it a new curiosity began to bloom. Later, during their shift change, Kalith cornered Jerk in a narrow corridor. "You know," she said, her tone casual, "you could have just let us laugh. We're quite skilled at it. But no, you had to fix the mess." Impressive and infuriating. Her ears flicked nervously. Lyria, peeking around a corner, snorted quietly. Jerk tilted his head, smiling faintly. "I figured saving you from a cloud of mutant lettuce might earn me a few brownie points." He gestured vaguely at the pods drifting in zero-G. Kalith raised an eyebrow. "Brownie points. With humans, I'd expect chocolate, not heroics," she teased. By the end of the day, the alien women's laughter had shifted. It was softer, amused, tinged with a new awareness. This human, this clumsy, surprisingly competent, irrepressibly funny human, was no ordinary soldier. Lyria and Kalith exchanged a look, ears twitching, and realized that their reign of mockery might be coming to an unanticipated end. Jerk collapsed in the lounge, staring at the stars streaking past the hull windows, and muttered, "And they said humans can't handle zero-G." Somewhere nearby, Lyria whispered to Kalith, "I think we're in trouble." Kalith's ears twitched, a grin spreading across her face. "Oh, definitely, but it's the fun kind of trouble." The cruiser hummed, carrying humans and aliens alike into uncharted space, laughter mingling with the distant echoes of starlight. Somewhere in the corridors, a floating strawberry hovered, forgotten, a small testament to the chaos, the humor, and the beginnings of something utterly unexpected. Jerk had barely caught his breath from the hydroponics debacle when he was assigned to the engine room, a place the human crew had nicknamed the heartbeat of doom. Lyria and Kalith were waiting, leaning casually against the maintenance consoles, ears twitching in amusement as he stepped through the hatch, boots squeaking slightly against the anti-grav surface. "Ah," Kalith said, crossing her arms, "our favorite human, ready to break more things." Her long ears flicked with mock expectation. Lyria tilted her head, smirking. "Or maybe, just maybe, fix something we didn't think you could touch without causing a stellar catastrophe." Jerk raised a hand in surrender. "I assure you my record is improving exponentially. Statistically speaking, I've only caused minor chaos today." He grinned, earning a raised eyebrow from Kalith. "Minor chaos," she echoed, pretending to jot it down in an invisible ledger. Humans really have a unique definition of minor. The engine room was a labyrinth of pulsating conduits, floating coolant streams, and panels that hummed with alien energy. Jerk's eyes darted around, absorbing the unfamiliar technology, his fingers itching to explore the panels that had made more than one human technician faint in the past. Lyria floated closer, studying him, ears twitching as if reading his nervous energy. "You realize, human," she said, "one wrong move and the whole core goes kaboom." "Noted," he replied, nudging a glowing conduit with a gloved hand which promptly sparked. "But kaboom sounds like fun." Kalith chuckled behind him, ears flicking with laughter. "Fun? You're going to be the death of us, literally." It didn't take long for trouble to arise. A reactor panel had begun to fluctuate erratically, its interface spitting warnings in alien glyphs. The human technicians panicked, hands waving in a chaotic ballet. Jerk stepped forward, helmet visor reflecting the pulsating lights of the core. "Stand back. I have an idea that might work if the core doesn't eat me first." Lyria's ears twitched with skepticism. Kalith muttered something that sounded suspiciously like, "Well, here comes the disaster show." Jerk's hands danced over the alien controls, improvising gestures that seemed reckless. Then, as sparks flew and warning alarms blared, the panel stabilized, humming steadily again. The alien women froze for a fraction of a second. Lyria's lips parted, a mix of shock and admiration. Kalith tilted her head, trying to process it. "He actually did it," she whispered, as if afraid to disturb the miracle. "I have to admit," Lyria said finally, ears twitching with reluctant amusement, "you have a bizarre, terrifying sort of talent." Caliph laughed, clapping her hands. I think we're allowed to be impressed, just quietly. Don't let anyone else see it. She leaned closer, her eyes glinting mischievously. Though human, you might owe me a favor for watching you not die spectacularly. Jerk grinned, wiping his hands. I accept, as long as it doesn't involve fixing your fashion choices. He gestured at the faintly iridescent uniforms the alien women wore. Lyria's ears twitched sharply and Caliph snorted, pretending to be offended. Fashion choices, she said. Please, this is Oak Cosmos. Amid the repairs, humor became the glue of their uneasy collaboration. Caliph challenged him to a zero-G tunnel race through the maintenance shafts, grinning wickedly as she nudged the human into a sprint. Jerk stumbled, spun, and somehow managed to outmaneuver her with an unintentional somersault that left him pinned against a coolant conduit. Caliph's laughter echoed, ears flicking with delight. Lyria leaned against a control panel, smirking at the chaos. I think he's worse than the core instability, and infinitely more entertaining. The race ended with Jerk triumphantly holding a floating wrench above his head like a trophy, and Caliph pretending to bow. All hail the slapstick champion of the stars, she declared, earning a sheepish laugh from him. Even Lyria's usually poised demeanor cracked, and her ears flicked with barely contained amusement. Hours later, an unexpected plasma leak erupted from a nearby manifold, hissing and spitting sparks. The human crew panicked, backs pressed against walls as the alien women raised an eyebrow. Time to see if our champion has a death wish, Lyria whispered. Jerk didn't hesitate. He dove toward the leak, using his combat suit's thrusters to navigate the zero-G hazard, fingers flying over alien controls, improvising valves and conduits. Sparks flew, alarms screamed, and coolant streams whirled dangerously close, but somehow he contained it, stabilizing the manifold in moments. Lyria and Caliph stared, mouths slightly open, ears twitching in disbelief. You might actually be competent, Caliph said, her voice soft, though she quickly masked it with humor. Scary, terrifyingly competent. Competence can be charming, Lyria added, unable to suppress a smile, ears twitching slightly. They both realized that the humor they wielded like a shield was melting, replaced by fascination and a hint of admiration. As the day wound down, the trio floated toward the crew lounge. Jerk leaned against the wall, smiling faintly, exhausted. Caliph nudged him with a toe, ears flicking. So, what do you think of alien engineering now, human? Terrifying, he admitted, grinning, but also kind of fun. Lyria snorted softly, her long ears flicking in amusement. Fun, huh? You're going to make us regret that word later. The cruiser hummed around them, system stabilizing, lights pulsing softly. Humor had softened the tension, forged bonds, and stirred unexpected curiosity between human and alien. Somewhere in the maintenance shafts, a stray floating conduit tipped over harmlessly, spinning gently, a small reminder that chaos and laughter could coexist, and that even in uncharted space, connection could emerge from the strangest of circumstances. By the end of the shift, the alien women's laughter had shifted from mocking to something softer, tinged with fascination. Jerk, clumsy yet brilliant, irreverent yet competent, had begun to break through their arrogance, opening a door to something neither human nor alien could have predicted. And as Lyria and Caliph exchanged a glance, ears flicking nervously, they knew with a spark of amusement, and perhaps apprehension, that the balance of power, pride, and attention aboard the Veyron's Pride was shifting. Humor and chaos were their constant companions, but now a human had arrived who could wield both, and the ripple of curiosity stretched far beyond the engine room, toward stars they had never charted. The hum of the Veyron's Pride was steady, almost comforting, as Jerk moved through the corridors with a mixture of confidence and exhaustion. Lyria and Caliph followed at a measured distance, their long ears flicking at every subtle sound, every shift in the ship's artificial gravity. The day had begun like any other, chaos, humor, and the occasional human clumsiness, but it had already changed in ways none of them could have predicted. A sudden alarm jolted them, a shrill, high-pitched screech that bounced off the hull and made Jerk curse under his breath. Plasma conduits in the aft engineering bay had overloaded, spitting sparks and sizzling clouds of energy into the narrow corridor. Calith's ears twitched sharply. Oh, splendid! A human hazard and a plasma hazard, together. Lyria tilted her head, lips twitching in a grin. At least one of us is entertained. Jerk launched himself forward, thrusters firing, boots barely grazing the metal as he landed next to the sparking conduit. His hands moved over the alien controls with practiced precision, improvising a sequence that neither Lyria nor Calith would have believed possible. Sparks hissed as they collided with the stabilizing fields, but the plasma slowly subsided, the conduits locking in place with a satisfying hum. Calith clapped, her long ears twitching in delight. "I'm beginning to think you enjoy terrifying us on purpose." "Only on days ending with Y," Jerk quipped, wiping sweat from his brow. Lyria's lips twitched in the faintest smile, and she muttered under her breath, "Terrifyingly human." When the emergency was contained, the three of them drifted into the common lounge, the artificial sunlight streaming through the hull windows, illuminating their floating forms. For the first time, the distance between them, human and alien, felt smaller, less defined by species and more by shared experience, laughter, and the unexpected thrill of survival. Calith nudged a floating datapad with her toe. "So human, now that you've saved the day again, what's next? Another heroic act involving rogue strawberries or malfunctioning plasma conduits?" Jerk smirked, settling against a railing. "Depends on how dramatic you want your entertainment today. I'm versatile." Lyria leaned closer, long ears brushing against his shoulder. "You've changed things, human," she said softly. "We mocked humans, dismissed them as fragile and ridiculous. And yet, here you are, not only surviving but thriving in ways we didn't expect." Jerk shrugged, a faint grin on his face. "Guess I'm good at surviving and even better at surviving with style." Calith snorted, bumping him lightly with her hip. "Style, that's one way to put it. Another might be chaos magnet." The conversation drifted toward laughter, teasing, and confessions wrapped in humor. The human soldier, who had been a source of amusement, challenge, and unpredictability, had grown into someone they could rely on, someone whose resilience and humor had slowly unraveled the aliens' pride. For the first time, Lyria and Calith realized that laughter wasn't just mockery. It could be a bridge, a spark, a pathway to something deeper. That night, when the ship's artificial night cycle dimmed the lights and the stars outside stretched endlessly, the trio found themselves alone in the observation deck. Floating pods of soft light reflected in their eyes as they spoke quietly, their teasing giving way to sincerity. Calith tilted her head, ears brushing his arm. "I never thought I'd say this, human, but I trust you." Jerk's lips curled into a soft smile. "I think I've come to expect that from you, at least most of the time." Lyria chuckled, ears twitching in amusement, and nudged his shoulder. "Most of the time, charming." Over the following cycles, the closeness deepened. Jerk's humor, courage, and unexpected ingenuity had dismantled the rigid walls of pride Lyria and Calith had built. Their laughter was no longer purely mockery. It was intimacy, a way to connect, a shared language bridging human and alien. The story reached its subtle crescendo when the human soldier and the two alien women found themselves alone in the ship's gravity garden, the plants drifting gently in zero-G, reflecting the soft starlight through the dome above. Jerk accidentally brushed against Calith's hand while reaching for a floating control panel, and Lyria's ears twitched at the contact. A moment stretched, small, intimate, charged with unspoken recognition. "You know," Jerk said, floating back slightly, "I think I understand why you laughed at humans before. It wasn't malice, it was disbelief." Calith raised an eyebrow. "Disbelief? You didn't expect us to endure, improvise, survive, and sometimes make you laugh." He grinned. "I guess now you have to accept that humans are more interesting than you thought." The aliens exchanged a glance, ears flicking nervously, and then laughter bubbled between them, soft, genuine, filled with warmth rather than ridicule. In that moment, the boundaries of species, pride, and hierarchy dissolved. The human soldier who had stumbled through corridors, fought with plants, and juggled plasma conduits had become something more. A catalyst for change, a bridge between two worlds, and a companion who could evoke both admiration and amusement. By the final hours of their voyage, the cruiser sailed smoothly through uncharted sectors, carrying a new rhythm. Humans and aliens navigating cooperation, humor, and curiosity. Jerk had changed too. His humor had matured into confidence, his clumsiness into resourcefulness, and his courage had opened doors to connection he had never imagined possible. Lyria floated close, her long ears brushing against his arm in a teasing, intimate gesture. "Well, human, I suppose we'll have to stop laughing at you now, or risk falling in love with you." Caliph snorted, bumping his shoulder lightly. "Too late for that, I'd say." Jerk shook his head, grinning, watching the stars stretch past the observation dome. "I guess some lessons are worth a few plasma burns and floating vegetables." And as the cruiser drifted farther into the starfield, their laughter mingled with the hum of engines and the distant glow of unknown worlds. Humor had softened fear, courage had transformed mockery, and connection had forged a bond that spanned species, pride, and prejudice. In the vastness of space, they had discovered the unexpected, that hearts, whether human or alien, could find alignment in the most improbable of ways, leaving the past behind and embracing